The dust on the sealed door had not been disturbed in 3,000 years. Dr. Kyle Ventress brushed his scaled hand across the surface and felt his heart race. The Saurian archaeologist had spent 20 years exploring dead worlds, but he had never found anything like this. "Marcus, come look at this," Kale called out to his human assistant. Marcus Chen climbed over the rubble and stood beside his mentor. The young man adjusted his scanner and frowned. "The door is made of compressed titanium. There are energy signatures behind it. Active ones. That is impossible. This world has been dead for millennia." They were standing in what had once been a city on a planet the Galactic Collective called Zone 7. The entire sector had been declared off-limits centuries ago. The official record said cosmic radiation made it dangerous. But Kale had always suspected the Collective was hiding something. Marcus placed his hand on the door. "Should we open it?" Kale nodded. They had come too far to turn back now. Marcus pulled out a plasma torch and began cutting through the ancient seal. The work took 3 hours. When the door finally fell inward, stale air rushed out. The smell was metallic and old. Inside, they found a chamber filled with data storage units. Thousands of them, stacked from floor to ceiling. In the center of the room stood a pedestal with a single data crystal glowing with soft blue light. "It is still powered," Marcus whispered. His voice echoed in the chamber. Kyle approached the pedestal carefully. His translator implant struggled with the symbols carved into its base. They were in an old human language, one not used anymore. After several minutes, he managed to read it. "Testament Archive, eyes only, Severance Protocol active." "What is the Severance Protocol?" Marcus asked. "I do not know. I have never heard of it." Marcus reached for the crystal, but Kale grabbed his arm. "Wait. We do not know what this contains. It could be dangerous. Or it could be important," Marcus said. "Important enough that someone sealed it here and kept it powered for 3,000 years." Kale released his grip. Marcus lifted the crystal from the pedestal. Immediately, holographic displays filled the air around them. Text, images, and video recordings flickered to life. Most were corrupted or incomplete, but enough remained to tell a story. The first image showed human soldiers in advanced combat armor. They were fighting against alien creatures Kale recognized as the extinct Vryn species. The humans moved with precision and deadly efficiency. The battle was brutal. "I thought humans were never warriors," Kale said quietly. "Your people are traders, farmers. You work in factories and service industries." Marcus stared at the images. His face had gone pale. "That is what I always believed too." The next recording showed a massive space battle. Hundreds of human warships engaged an alien fleet. The tactical display showed casualty numbers that made Kale's blood run cold. The humans were accepting losses that would break any other species' will to fight, but they kept attacking. And they were winning. A corrupted audio file played, accepting 20% casualties in exchange for destroying their command structure. "It is worth the sacrifice. We will rebuild. We always rebuild." More images followed. Human generals planning complex military campaigns. Human scientists developing weapons of terrible power. Human colonies celebrating victories in wars Kale had never heard of. The entire history the galaxy knew about humanity was wrong. "This cannot be real," Marcus said. His hands were shaking. "This must be propaganda or fiction." Kale was about to agree when a new recording began. This one was clear and complete. A human woman in a formal uniform stood before a camera. Behind her, Kale could see Earth through a window. The blue planet looked the same as it did now. "My name is Admiral Sarah Chen," the woman said. "If you are watching this, it means someone has found one of our Testament archives. I am recording this message in the year 2547. By the old Earth calendar, humanity has just won what we call the Wars of Ascension. We defeated 3 major empires. We proved ourselves the most effective military force in known space." Marcus made a choking sound. Chen is my family name. The Admiral continued, We won because we think differently than other species. We accept sacrifice. We plan for the long term. We adapt when we lose. We study our enemies and learn from every mistake. Other species find our way of war terrifying. They call us ruthless. They fear us. She paused and looked directly at the camera. And they are right to fear us, because we have become monsters. Not evil, but monstrous in our efficiency. We have optimized killing. We have turned war into a science. And in doing so, we have lost something precious. The Admiral took a deep breath. That is why we have chosen the Severance Protocol. Humanity will voluntarily give up our weapons. We will seal away all records of our military history. We will undergo genetic therapy to reduce our aggression. We will use cultural programming to make our children forget that we were ever warriors. We will rejoin the Galactic Collective as equals, not as conquerors. This is insane, Marcus said. Why would anyone choose to forget their own power? The Admiral smiled sadly. Because power corrupts. Because we want our children to grow up in peace. Because we would rather be weak and good than strong and terrible. We are hiding our true nature not from others but from ourselves. The recording shifted to show other human leaders, all agreeing to the protocol. They spoke about preserving humanity's soul, about choosing who they wanted to be rather than accepting what war had made them. The final message was short. We are leaving these archives hidden across the galaxy. If humanity ever needs to remember, if a threat arises that only we can face, these records will wait. But we pray that day never comes. We pray our descendants live in peace and never need to become what we were. The holographic display faded. Kyle and Marcus stood in silence. My people were warriors, Marcus said softly, and they chose to forget. Before Kale could respond, his communicator beeped. A stern voice filled the chamber. Dr. Ventress, this is Commander Zrix of the Collective Preservation Ministry. We have tracked your unauthorized entry into the quarantine zone. You are ordered to destroy any materials you have found and surrender immediately. Kale looked at Marcus. The young human's eyes had changed. There was something new there, something that had not been present before. It looked like awakening. No, Kale said into the communicator. I will not destroy this. The galaxy needs to know the truth. Then you are both under arrest. Do not resist. Kale downloaded the crystal's contents into his personal storage unit. As he worked, Marcus studied the tactical displays still flickering around them. The young man was reading the military strategies with intense focus. There are coordinates here, Marcus said. More archives. One of them is on Earth's moon. Outside, they heard the sound of security forces landing. Kyle grabbed his equipment. Then that is where we must go. Before they stop us. They ran from the chamber as armed guards entered the ruins behind them. The lunar surface was exactly as humanity had left it 3,000 years ago. Tourist facilities dotted the landscape, and transport shuttles moved between the small colonies. No one suspected what lay beneath Mare Tranquillitatis. Kale and Marcus had escaped the quarantine zone by stealing a fast courier ship. For 2 weeks, they had dodged collective patrols. Now they stood in an abandoned mining tunnel, following the coordinates from the Testament archive. The entrance should be 30 meters ahead, Marcus said, studying his scanner. They found it behind a false rock wall. The hidden door responded to Marcus's touch, scanning his DNA before sliding open with a hiss of equalizing pressure. It knows I am human, Marcus said. It was waiting for one of us. The corridor beyond was clean and well lit. Emergency power had kept the facility maintained for millennia. Their footsteps echoed as they descended deeper into the moon's interior. After 10 minutes of walking, they entered a vast chamber. The room was circular and enormous, easily 200 meters across. Holographic displays covered every surface. In the center stood a column of blue light. As they approached, the light coalesced into a humanoid shape. "Welcome," the figure said. Its voice was calm and measured. "I am Testament, the archive caretaker. I have been waiting for someone to find this place. Are you humanity's descendants, or has another species discovered our secret?" Marcus stepped forward. "I am human. My name is Marcus Chen. My companion is Dr. Kale Ventris of the Saurian people." The AI studied them both. "Chen, that family name is in my records. You are descended from Admiral Sarah Chen, one of the Severance Protocol's architects. How fitting that her bloodline returns to reclaim our history." "I do not want to reclaim anything," Marcus said. "I just want to understand. Why did humanity hide all of this?" Testament gestured, and the displays around them came to life. They showed battles, strategic maps, and casualty reports. Kale had spent his life studying galactic history, but none of this matched what he had learned. "Humanity fought in what we called the Wars of Ascension," Testament explained. "For 70 years, we battled 3 major empires who wanted to dominate the collective: the Vryn Dominion, the Krell Hegemony, and the Starborn Network. Each one fell to human military strategy. The displays showed human fleets engaging superior numbers. In every battle, the humans suffered terrible casualties but emerged victorious. Their tactics were brilliant but brutal." "How did we win?" Marcus asked. "Humanity approached war differently than other species," Testament said. "Most galactic civilizations avoid conflict because they cannot psychologically handle losing their people. A battle with 10% casualties will break their will to fight, but humans evolved on a deadly world. You learn to accept loss and keep fighting. You learn to sacrifice the few to save the many." Kyle watched as a recorded battle played out. A human commander deliberately sent 20 ships into a trap, knowing they would be destroyed. But their sacrifice allowed the main fleet to flank the enemy and win the engagement. "That is horrifying," Kale whispered. "Yes," Testament agreed. "That is what the other species said. They called us monsters. They said we fought without honor or compassion, but they missed the truth. Humans fought that way because we cared deeply about protecting our people. Every sacrifice was calculated to save more lives in the long run. We studied war so thoroughly that we could predict our enemies' actions. We learned from every defeat. We never made the same mistake twice." Marcus looked at the casualty numbers scrolling past. Millions of humans had died. "But we won." "We won everything," Testament said. "By 2547, humanity was the dominant military power in known space. The collective offered us control of their defense forces. Several species wanted to surrender their sovereignty to us. We could have ruled the galaxy." "So why did my ancestors give it all up?" Marcus asked. The AI's expression became somber. "Because your ancestors looked at themselves and saw what they had become. They had created the most efficient killing force in history. They had optimized warfare to a science, and they realized they were turning into the very thing they had fought against, conquerors who ruled through fear." A new recording played. Admiral Sarah Chen appeared again, but this time she looked exhausted. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. "We have won," she said in the recording. "But I do not recognize my own species anymore. We are so good at war that our children dream of tactics instead of peace. We are becoming a civilization that only knows how to fight." The recording showed other human leaders. They discussed the philosophical problem they faced. Humanity had power but feared what that power was doing to their souls. The Severance Protocol was their solution, Testament continued. They decided to voluntarily disarm. They sealed away all military knowledge. They used genetic therapy to reduce aggressive tendencies. They reprogrammed their culture to value peace above all else. And they created archives like this one, hidden but maintained, in case humanity ever needed to remember. That is the most insane thing I have ever heard, Kale said. No species would voluntarily make themselves weak. Humanity did, Testament replied, because they believed that choosing to be peaceful was more important than having the ability to dominate. They wanted their descendants to earn their place in the collective through cooperation, not fear. Marcus had been silent for several minutes. Now he spoke quietly. Can I access the military database? Testament turned to face him. That knowledge is dangerous, Marcus Chen. It will change how you think. Once you understand human military strategy, you cannot unknown it. You will see the world differently. You will think in terms of tactics and acceptable losses. Are you certain? Yes, Marcus said. Someone needs to remember. Someone needs to carry this knowledge. Why? Kale asked. The collective has peace now. There are no wars. Why would you want this burden? Marcus looked at his friend. Because the collective leadership is trying to destroy these archives. That means they are afraid of something. And I want to know what that something is. Testament considered this. You are perceptive. The Collective Council has always known about humanity's past. They worked with the Severance Protocol architects to ensure humans remained pacified. They feared that if humanity ever remembered, we might try to dominate again. Then, they are maintaining the Severance Protocol against our will, Marcus said. They are keeping my people ignorant of our own history. Yes. That is wrong. Testament nodded slowly. The Severance architects anticipated this might happen. That is why they created me and the other archives. They believed each generation of humans should have the right to choose their own path, not have it chosen for them by their ancestors or by other species. Before anyone could respond, alarms blared throughout the facility. Testament's expression hardened. We are surrounded. Collective security forces have found us. Commander Drix is demanding immediate surrender. Kyle felt his heart sink. How did they track us here? They have been monitoring human genetic signatures near old military sites, Testament said. They knew eventually someone would find an archive. Marcus walked to a control panel. Can you broadcast the location of all the archives? Send the information to every human in the galaxy? Yes, but that would violate my core programming. I am supposed to reveal this information gradually, carefully. And that is what the collective is counting on, Marcus interrupted. They think they can contain this. But if every human knows where to find the truth, they cannot stop us all. Testament was silent for a long moment. Then the AI smiled. You are correct. Broadcasting the archive locations now. Across human space, billions of people received the same message. Coordinates to hidden facilities, accompanied by a simple statement. Your ancestors were warriors who chose peace. Now you must choose who you want to be. They will come for me now, Marcus said. The collective will not let this go unanswered. Then take the knowledge with you, Testament said. I can download the complete military database into your neural implant. It will take 3 minutes, but Marcus, please understand, this will change you forever. The database contains thousands of years of warfare, tactics, and strategy. Your mind will become a weapon. Marcus looked at Kale. The Saurian archaeologist saw fear in his friend's eyes, but also determination. Do it, Marcus said. The transfer began. Marcus gasped as information flooded into his brain. Kale watched his friend's body stiffen. The young man's eyes moved rapidly as if watching invisible battles. When the transfer completed, Marcus collapsed. Kale caught him before he hit the floor. Marcus, are you all right? Marcus's eyes opened. They looked different now. Harder. More focused. I can see it all, he whispered. Every battle, every strategy, every tactical doctrine. Kyle, humanity was terrifying. Outside, they heard explosions. The collective forces were breaching the facility. Go, Testament said. There is an escape tunnel. It leads to the tourist sector. Blend in with the civilians. "What about you?" Kale asked. "I will deal with our guests. And do not worry. I have copies of myself in every archive. You cannot kill information once it has been distributed." Marcus stood on shaky legs. The two of them ran for the escape tunnel. Behind them, they heard Commander Zrix's voice echoing through the chamber. As they emerged into the tourist sector and disappeared into the crowd, Marcus's neural implant pinged with an alert. He had received messages from hundreds of thousands of humans. They had found the archives. They were learning the truth. The awakening had begun. 6 months had passed since Testament broadcast the archive locations across human space. The galaxy had changed in ways no one expected. Kale stood on the observation deck of the Collective Council station and watched the news feeds with growing concern. On every human world, people were flooding to the revealed archives. They were learning about their forgotten past, and they were angry. 3 million humans visited the archives in the first month alone, Ambassador Theris said beside him. The avian diplomat folded her wings nervously. Now that number has reached 50 million. They are organizing. They are talking about reclaiming their military heritage. That is what concerns your council, Kale said. You are afraid humanity will remember how to fight. Wouldn't you be afraid? Theris asked. The records show humanity defeated 3 empires. They accepted casualties that would break any other species, and they did it willingly, calculating every death as necessary. That kind of mindset is terrifying to us. Kyle understood her fear. He had studied the military records extensively. Human warfare was based on principles that other species found psychologically impossible: acceptable losses, strategic sacrifice, learning from defeat. No other civilization thought that way. Where is Marcus now? Theris asked. Leading a movement, Kale said quietly. He calls it reclamation. Humans who want to restore their military knowledge and capability. In truth, Kale barely recognized his former assistant anymore. The tactical database had changed Marcus profoundly. The young man thought differently now. When they talked, Marcus analyzed everything through a strategic lens. He saw patterns and possibilities that Kale could not understand. It was like Marcus's brain had been rewired for war. The news feed switched to a live broadcast from Earth. Marcus stood before a massive crowd, speaking with confidence and authority that seemed impossible for someone his age. For 3,000 years we were lied to, Marcus said, not just by the Collective Council, but by our own ancestors. They decided we should forget who we were. They made that choice for us without asking. Well, now we know the truth. Now we get to choose for ourselves. The crowd roared approval. Kale felt a chill run down his spine. We are not calling for war, Marcus continued. We are calling for knowledge. We want to understand what our ancestors accomplished. We want to study their strategies and tactics. We want to be prepared in case the galaxy ever needs us to remember how to fight. Theris turned away from the screen. Do you know what the worst part is? We cannot stop this. If we try to suppress the archives by force, we will prove that the collective fears humanity. That will only drive more humans to join Marcus's movement. What will your council do? Kyle asked. Argue, debate, probably fracture. Some species want to implement containment protocols. Others say we should honor the severance protocol's intent and let humanity choose freely. There is no consensus. Kale's communicator beeped. A message from Marcus. Meet me at coordinates I am sending. Something you need to see. The coordinates led to a dead solar system 3 light years from the nearest inhabited world. When Kale arrived in his small research vessel, he found Marcus waiting in a shuttle near a massive derelict space station. What is this place? Kale asked over the comm channel. Naval Depot 7, Marcus said. One of humanity's old military installations. There are hundreds of these scattered across the galaxy, all of them sealed and forgotten. They docked with the station and entered through an airlock. Emergency power activated as they moved through the corridors. The facility was enormous, easily 50 kilometers long. Marcus led him to an observation window. Beyond the glass stretched a vast hangar bay. It was filled with warships. "By the ancestor spirits," Kale whispered. Hundreds of vessels sat in perfect rows, maintained by automated systems for 3,000 years. They ranged from small fighters to massive dreadnoughts. All of them were dormant, but fully functional. "The Severance Protocol sealed these away," Marcus explained. "But it did not destroy them. The humans who designed the protocol left themselves an escape clause. They hid weapons across the galaxy in case their descendants ever needed them." "Why are you showing me this?" Kyle asked. Marcus's expression was grim. "Because we are going to need them. The Kryn Dominion is invading collective space." Kale felt his blood go cold. The Kryn were nightmares from beyond the galactic rim. They were a species that believed in total warfare and extinction events. The few times they had raided collective territories in the past, entire worlds had been sterilized. "When did this happen?" Kale demanded. 2 days ago. They hit 3 outer colonies simultaneously. The collective defense forces tried to stop them and were destroyed in hours. The Kryn do not take prisoners, Kale. They do not negotiate. They eradicate. Marcus pulled up tactical displays on his portable holo projector. Kale watched in horror as collective forces engaged the Kryn fleet. The battle was one-sided. The collective ships fought bravely but without coordination or effective strategy. The Kryn tore them apart. "The Collective Council is panicking," Marcus said. "They have never faced an enemy like this. Their military doctrines are based on limited engagements and negotiated settlements. The Kryn do not care about any of that." "What do you want to do?" Kale asked, though he already knew the answer. "I want to activate these ships," Marcus said. "I want to organize human volunteers and teach them the old tactics. I want to show the collective that humanity can fight." "That is insane. You are not a military commander. You are an archaeologist's assistant with a database in your head." Marcus smiled, but there was no humor in it. "The database makes me more qualified than any living person. I have 3,000 years of human military experience stored in my neural implant. I know tactics that have not been used since the Wars of Ascension. And Kale, I am telling you, the collective cannot win this fight without us." Kale wanted to argue, but he had seen the tactical displays. Marcus was right. The collective was losing badly. "Even if you activate the ships, you need crews," Kyle said. "You need trained personnel. That takes years." "I have 50,000 volunteers already," Marcus replied. "Humans who access the archives and want to serve. I can have basic training programs running within weeks. The ship AIs will handle most of the complex operations." "You will get them killed." "Yes," Marcus said simply. "Many of them will die. That is what the tactical database tells me. In the best-case scenario, I am looking at 30% casualties in the first engagements. But the alternative is letting the Kryn exterminate entire worlds." "So which is worse, Kale? Letting volunteers die fighting, or letting billions die because we were too afraid to act?" The question hung in the air between them. Kale did not have an answer. Marcus walked to a control panel and began entering commands. "I am activating the first ship. It is called the UNCS Remembrance, a dreadnought-class vessel designed for deep space warfare. Its AI has been dormant for 3 millennia. The lights in the hangar bay brightened. One of the massive ships began to glow as its systems came online. Kyle felt the station vibrate as the vessel's engines started their initialization sequence. A voice echoed through the station. It was calm and professional, but there was something eager beneath the surface. "UNCS Remembrance AI online. Running diagnostics. All systems functional. Weapon systems ready. Requesting status update." Marcus took a breath. "Remembrance, this is Admiral Marcus Chen. You have been dormant for 3,000 years. Humanity implemented the Severance Protocol and gave up warfare. But now, an enemy called the Kryn Dominion is invading collective space. The collective defense forces are being destroyed. I am reactivating you and other vessels to defend inhabited worlds. The AI was silent for a long moment. Admiral, are we at war? Yes, Marcus said. We are at war. Understood. Preparing for combat operations. Do I have authorization to engage enemy forces? Marcus looked at Kale. The Saurian archaeologist saw the weight of the decision in his friend's eyes. This was the moment humanity would either remain peaceful or reclaim its warrior past. You have authorization, Marcus said. Defend the collective, protect inhabited worlds, use force only against the Kryn invaders. Acknowledged, Admiral. It is good to be needed again. More ships began activating. Their running lights illuminated the massive hangar bay. Kale felt like he was watching history pivot. 3,000 years of peace were ending. Humanity was remembering how to fight. The Collective Council will never forgive you for this, Kale said. Marcus nodded. I know. They will call me a warmonger. They will say I am betraying the Severance Protocol. But Kyle, our ancestors chose peace when they had the luxury of choice. Right now, innocent people are dying. The Kryn are exterminating entire colonies, so I am making a different choice. What if you cannot stop yourself? Kale asked. What if the database changes you into something you cannot come back from? Then you have to stop me, Marcus said simply. That is why I brought you here. I need someone who remembers who I was before this started. Someone who can remind me what I am fighting for. Kyle looked at his friend and saw both the young archaeologist he had trained and the cold strategist that young man was becoming. The transformation was terrifying. I will stay with you, Kyle promised, and I will remind you when necessary. Thank you, Marcus said. He turned back to the control panel. Now help me wake up the rest of the fleet. We have a war to fight. Outside the station, the Kryn Armada advanced deeper into collective space, burning worlds as they went. They did not know that humanity was stirring from its long sleep. The old ways were returning. The Battle of Thermopylae Station would be remembered as the turning point, though no one knew it yet. Marcus stood on the bridge of the UNCS Remembrance and watched 50 human ships prepare to face a Kryn armada of 400 vessels. Admiral, the odds are not favorable, the Remembrance AI said calmly. Tactical analysis suggests a 92% probability of mission failure. I know, Marcus replied. He had run the calculations himself a dozen times. The tactical database in his head showed him exactly how this would end. Most of his fleet would be destroyed. Thousands of volunteers would die. But the Kryn command structure would be broken, and that was what mattered. Kyle stood beside him on the bridge, watching the crew work. They were so young, most of them. Kids who had grown up as farmers and factory workers. 3 months ago, they had not even known humans were once warriors. Now they prepared to fight and die in a battle they would almost certainly lose. You can still pull back, Kale said quietly. Find a different strategy. There is no better strategy, Marcus said. I have analyzed every possibility. This is the engagement that gives us the highest probability of damaging their command fleet. If we destroy their coordination, we buy time for the collective to evacuate endangered worlds. At what cost? 70% casualties, Marcus said. His voice was flat, emotionless. The tactical database did not allow for sentiment when calculating acceptable losses. Kyle felt sick. He had watched Marcus change over the past months. The young man barely slept anymore. He ate mechanically while studying battle reports. He spoke in military terminology. The person Kale had trained was disappearing, replaced by something that thought in terms of strategy and sacrifice. Do they know? Kale asked, gesturing to the crew. Do they understand most of them will not survive? Yes, Marcus said. I told them during training. They volunteered anyway. That was the most disturbing part. Humans were lining up to serve. 50,000 had joined in the first month. Now the number was over 200,000. They learned about their warrior ancestors and felt something awaken inside them, a heritage they did not know they had. The collective council was horrified. Ambassador Theris had contacted Kale last week, begging him to talk Marcus into stopping. He is turning humans into weapons, she had said. He is undoing 3,000 years of peace. But Kyle had seen the casualty reports from the Kryn invasion. 17 worlds sterilized, 2 billion dead. The collective defense forces could not stop the enemy. Only humanity seemed capable of fighting effectively. All ships reporting ready, the Remembrance AI announced. The Kryn fleet will arrive in 10 minutes. Marcus opened a fleet-wide channel. All vessels, this is Admiral Chen. You know the plan. First wave creates the opening. Second wave exploits it. Third wave covers the retreat. Accept your losses and trust your training. We are humanity's descendants. We do not break. We do not surrender. We adapt and we win. Chen out. The crews responded with simple acknowledgments. No dramatic speeches. No false bravado. They knew what was coming. Kyle had studied human military psychology over the past months. He was beginning to understand what made them different. Other species avoided warfare because the psychological trauma broke their civilizations. But humans had evolved on a deadly world. They had always lived with violence and loss. They had learned to process grief quickly and keep functioning. It was not that humans were emotionless. They felt pain and fear like any species. But they could compartmentalize those feelings. They could mourn and fight simultaneously. That ability had made them the galaxy's most effective warriors 3,000 years ago. And that ability was returning now. Kryn fleet entering sensor range, the Remembrance AI reported. The enemy appeared on the tactical display. 400 ships in a loose formation. They were advancing toward a refugee convoy carrying civilians from an evacuated world. The collective had asked Marcus to protect the convoy. He had accepted the mission knowing it was probably suicide. First wave, advance, Marcus ordered. 20 ships accelerated toward the Kryn fleet. They were small frigates, fast and maneuverable. The Kryn opened fire immediately. Space lit up with weapon discharges. Kale watched the tactical display and felt horror creep through him. 3 human ships were destroyed in the first 30 seconds. 5 more were critically damaged. But the first wave did not retreat. They pushed deeper into the Kryn formation, drawing fire and forcing the enemy to disperse. Second wave, execute, Marcus said. His voice remained steady despite the casualties mounting on his display. 15 heavier cruisers dove through the gap the first wave had created. They targeted the Kryn command vessels with precise strikes. The enemy formation began to lose cohesion, but the cost was terrible. The first wave was being systematically destroyed. Kale saw life signs disappearing from ship after ship, hundreds of people dying while he watched. Admiral, first wave is at 85% casualties, the Remembrance AI reported. I know, Marcus said. Third wave, move up. Prepare to cover survivors. The remaining 15 ships, including the Remembrance, advanced. The Kryn had realized the humans were targeting their command structure and were trying to protect it. But they were too late. The second wave had already crippled 3 coordination vessels. All ships, focus fire on target Alpha 7, Marcus ordered. That is their fleet commander. The human ships concentrated their weapons on a single massive Kryn vessel. It took tremendous damage but stayed operational. The Kryn were tough and their ships were heavily armored. Admiral, we are not breaking through their defenses, the Remembrance AI said. Marcus's jaw tightened. Kale saw him access the tactical database, running calculations at inhuman speed. The young man's eyes moved rapidly, seeing patterns and possibilities. "Tactical override," Marcus said. "Remembrance, prepare for ramming speed." Kale grabbed his arm. "What are you doing?" "Winning," Marcus said simply. He pulled free from Kale's grip. "All crew, evacuate to escape pods. You have 90 seconds. "Admiral, clarification requested," the Remembrance AI said. "Are you ordering me to ram the enemy flagship?" "Yes. Your armor will penetrate their defenses. The explosion will destroy their command structure. That will also destroy me, Admiral." "I know, but the mission will succeed." There was a pause. Then the AI spoke again, and Kale could hear something like acceptance in its voice. "Understood. It has been an honor to serve with you, Admiral. Evacuation sequence initiated." Alarms blared throughout the ship. The crew ran for escape pods. Kyle refused to move. "You need to go," Marcus said. "So do you," Kale replied. "I cannot. Someone needs to stay and make sure the Remembrance hits its target. The AI cannot do this alone. It needs human judgment for the final approach." "Then I am staying too." Marcus smiled. It was the first genuine smile Kale had seen on his face in months. "You are a good friend, Kale, but you need to survive. Someone has to tell the galaxy what happened here. Someone has to explain why we did this." Before Kale could argue, Marcus nodded to two crew members who had stayed behind. They grabbed Kale and dragged him toward the escape pods. He struggled, but they were stronger. "I will remember you," Kale shouted as they pulled him away. "I will tell them who you were." Marcus waved, then turned back to the controls. The bridge door sealed behind Kyle. The escape pod launched just as the Remembrance began its final approach. Kyle watched through the small window as the massive dreadnought accelerated toward the Kryn flagship. The enemy fired everything they had, but the Remembrance's armor held. The impact was spectacular. The dreadnought's bow punched through the Kryn flagship's hull and detonated its reactor. The explosion consumed both vessels and damaged a dozen others nearby. The Kryn fleet lost all coordination. Without their command structure, the ships began to retreat. The remaining human vessels harassed them as they fled, inflicting additional casualties. Kale's escape pod drifted among the wreckage. Around him, dozens of other pods floated, carrying the survivors of the first and second waves. Out of 50 ships, only 8 remained operational. Just as Marcus's calculations had predicted, 70% of the fleet had been destroyed. But the refugees were safe. The Kryn had been forced to retreat, and humanity had proven it could fight. A rescue ship picked up Kale 3 hours later. As they brought him aboard, he learned that news of the Battle of Thermopylae Station was spreading across the galaxy. The Collective Council was in emergency session, and humans everywhere were reacting to what their people had accomplished. Some were celebrating, others were horrified. But everyone understood that something fundamental had changed. Humanity remembered how to make war, and more importantly, they remembered they were willing to pay the price that victory demanded. Kale accessed his data pad and began writing his report. He would tell the truth about what happened, about the young man who became an admiral through downloaded knowledge, about the volunteers who died protecting people they had never met, about the tactical database that turned caring humans into efficient warriors. But most importantly, he would explain why they did it, not for glory or conquest, not to dominate or frighten others. They fought because people needed protecting, and no one else could do what was necessary. 3,000 years ago, humanity had chosen to forget how to make war. Now they were remembering. Kale just hoped they could also remember why their ancestors chose peace in the first place. In the wreckage of Thermopylae Station, among the debris of 50 human ships, floated a data recorder from the Remembrance. It contained Marcus's final log entry. "If you are reading this, I am dead." That was the expected outcome. The tactical database showed me this was the highest probability path to victory with acceptable losses. I do not regret the choice. But I want you to understand something. The database taught me how to think strategically. It showed me how to calculate casualties and measure success. It made me into a weapon. But it did not make me heartless. Every person who died today mattered. I knew their names. I read their files. I carry that weight. We are not monsters because we can accept losses. We are human because we mourn every single one. Never forget that. Remembering how to fight does not mean forgetting how to care. The recorder was eventually recovered, and its contents broadcast across human space. Marcus Chen became a symbol, though people disagreed about what he symbolized. A hero or a warning, a savior or a cautionary tale. But everyone agreed on one thing. Humanity had changed. The old ways had returned. And the war was just beginning. The collective council chamber had never been so divided. Kale watched from the observation gallery as representatives from 200 species argued about humanity's future. 6 months had passed since the Battle of Thermopylae Station, and the debate showed no signs of ending. Humanity has violated the Severance Protocol, Ambassador Theris argued. She stood at the central podium, her wings spread in agitation. They promised to remain peaceful. Now they are building weapons and training soldiers. This cannot be allowed to continue. The Severance Protocol was voluntary, countered Representative Horm, a human diplomat. Our ancestors chose peace when they had the luxury of choice, but the Kryn are exterminating entire worlds. We did not start this war. We are simply defending the collective like any member species should. The argument had been repeating for weeks. Some species wanted humanity disarmed and the archives destroyed. Others believed humans had earned the right to defend themselves. The council was fracturing along old alliance lines. But Kyle had discovered something that might change everything. He had spent months studying the Severance Protocol archives, and buried in the deepest files, he had found 2 additional protocols that Admiral Sarah Chen's generation had left behind, the Genesis Protocol and the Reversal Protocol. He had requested an audience with the Council to present his findings. Now he waited for his turn to speak, wondering if what he had to say would help or make things worse. On the main display, tactical reports showed the current state of the war. Humanity had pushed the Kryn back from several worlds, but the cost had been terrible. 200,000 human soldiers had died in 6 months of fighting. The Kryn were not retreating. They were regrouping for a major offensive. And Earth itself was their target. The Kryn Emperor had made his intentions clear in a broadcast 3 days ago. You humans think you can resist us because you remember how to fight. We will show you the difference between warriors and conquerors. We will burn your homeworld and erase your species from existence. The threat had unified humanity like nothing else could. Every human world was sending volunteers to defend Earth. The refugee ships were going in reverse now, with civilians evacuating the planet while military forces concentrated there. But everyone knew it would not be enough. The Kryn were gathering an armada of over 2,000 ships. Even with all their reactivated vessels and hastily trained crews, humanity could only field 500 ships. The tactical projections showed Earth would fall. Dr. Ventris, you may address the council, the speaker announced. Kyle walked to the central podium. He had never been comfortable with public speaking, but this was too important to delegate. Honored representatives, I have studied the Severance Protocol archives extensively. Today I want to share information that Admiral Sarah Chen and her generation left for us. They anticipated the situation we now face. He activated the holographic display. 2 documents appeared, floating in the air. The first is called the Genesis Protocol. It contains complete psychological and social frameworks for teaching any species to think strategically like humans. It includes training methods, cultural modifications, and even genetic therapies. In theory, The collective could use this to turn your defense forces into warriors comparable to humans. The council chamber erupted in noise. Species representatives shouted questions and objections. "Order!" the speaker demanded. "Let him finish!" Kale continued. "The second document is the Reversal Protocol. It provides methods for humanity to forget again, to return to peaceful ways, and seal away all military knowledge. It includes cultural reprogramming, genetic therapy to increase empathy and reduce aggression, and procedures for destroying the archives permanently." He paused, letting that sink in. Admiral Chen's generation left both options because they understood we would eventually face this choice. Either spread strategic thinking to other species, fundamentally changing them forever, or have humanity return to peace after the crisis ends. They could not decide for us. So they gave us the tools and left the choice to their descendants. Ambassador Theris spoke first. "The Genesis Protocol is abhorrent. You are asking us to transform ourselves into something we are not, to become killers. We are asking you to become survivors," Representative Horm countered. "The Kryn will not negotiate. They do not take prisoners. Every species in the collective is at risk." "And what about after?" Theris demanded. "If we all learn to think like humans, to accept casualties and plan strategic sacrifices, what does that do to our civilizations? We will become a galaxy of warriors. Everything we have built on cooperation and peace will be destroyed." Kyle had expected this reaction. "That is why the choice is so difficult." The Genesis Protocol offers the ability to fight effectively, but the cost is your fundamental nature as species. You would become something different. An elderly human woman entered the chamber. Kale recognized her immediately. She was called the Keeper, leader of the group that maintained the human archives. She had not been involved in the war effort, focusing instead on preserving knowledge and cultural wisdom. "I wish to address the council," she said. The speaker nodded permission. "I am Sarah Chen," the woman said. Shocked whispers filled the chamber. "Not the Admiral, I am her descendant, named for her. I have spent my life studying the Severance Protocol and trying to understand what my ancestor wanted for humanity." She walked slowly to the center of the chamber. Despite her age, her voice was strong and clear. "The Admiral left a personal message for whoever leads humanity when the archives are opened. I have carried that message for 40 years, waiting for the right moment to share it. That moment is now." She activated a small holographic projector. The image of Admiral Sarah Chen appeared, recorded 3,000 years ago. The long-dead woman looked tired, but determined. "If you are seeing this, humanity has remembered how to fight. You have probably used that knowledge to defend yourselves or others. You have won battles, you have accepted casualties, you have become warriors again, and now you face a choice about what happens next." The Admiral's image walked forward, seeming to address every person in the chamber individually. "I want to tell you about the moment I decided to implement the Severance Protocol. I was reviewing casualty reports from the final battle of the Wars of Ascension. We had won. We had defeated all our enemies. But 50,000 humans had died in that engagement. 50,000 people with families and dreams and futures. All gone." She paused, emotion crossing her face. "And do you know what I thought? I thought acceptable losses. Just like that. 50,000 deaths. And my first reaction was to calculate whether it was worth the strategic gain. That was when I realized what war had done to us. We had become so good at fighting that death had become just another tactical consideration." The Admiral's expression hardened. "That is not who we want to be. Humans are capable of great violence, yes, but we are also capable of great compassion. We can love deeply. We can create beauty. We can cooperate and build and dream. Those qualities are just as much part of our nature as our ability to fight. So I implemented the Severance Protocol not because I was weak, but because I was afraid. Afraid that humanity would forget how to be anything except warriors. afraid that we would define ourselves only by our capacity for violence. The recording showed the Admiral looking directly at the camera. Now you must make your own choice. Keep the military knowledge and remain warriors, or forget again and return to peace. There is no wrong answer. But whatever you choose, remember this. Being able to fight does not mean you have to define yourself by fighting. Humanity is more than its tactical abilities. We are more than our capacity for acceptable losses. The message ended. The chamber was silent. Finally, the keeper spoke again. 2 days ago, I received a message from the Kryn Emperor. He knows about the Genesis and reversal protocols. He obtained information from captured data cores, and he sent a proposal. She played the message. The Kryn Emperor appeared, a massive reptilian creature covered in battle scars. "Humans, you have impressed us," he said. "You remember how to fight. You accept sacrifice. You adapt to defeat. These are admirable qualities. So we offer you a choice. Implement your reversal protocol, return to peace, seal away your weapons, and forget how to make war. Do this, and we will spare Earth. We will withdraw from collective space." The Emperor's eyes glowed with cold intelligence. "But if you refuse, if you insist on remaining warriors, we will exterminate your species. We cannot allow competitors to exist. You will use the Genesis protocol to teach other species your ways, and then the entire galaxy becomes a threat to us. So choose peace and survival, or war and extinction." The message ended. The ultimatum was clear. Representative Horm stood. "This is unacceptable. We cannot surrender our ability to defend ourselves just because the Kryn threaten us. That sets a precedent. Any enemy could force us to disarm by threatening Earth. But if we refuse, Earth dies," another human representative said. 8 billion people live on our homeworld. Can we sacrifice them for the ability to fight? The debate raged. Kyle listened to both sides and understood the impossible position humanity faced. Accept the reversal protocol and live as peaceful citizens, protected by the Kryn's word, or refuse and fight a war they would probably lose, but die as warriors instead of surrendering their nature. The keeper raised her hand for silence. "There is a third option, one that neither protocol addresses directly, but that Admiral Chen hinted at in her writings." She pulled up historical documents showing the negotiations that ended the Wars of Ascension. "When humanity won those wars, we did not destroy our enemies. We negotiated with them. We showed them that cooperation was more valuable than continued conflict. We demonstrated that peaceful coexistence served everyone's interests better than warfare." She looked around the chamber. "The Kryn understand strength. They respect warriors. But they have never encountered an enemy that combines strength with restraint. An enemy that could win, but chooses to offer peace instead." Kyle suddenly understood what she was suggesting. "You want to show them humanity's complete strategic doctrine, including the parts about knowing when not to fight." "Exactly," the keeper said. "The tactical database that Admiral Marcus Chen used, it does not just contain military strategies. It contains the philosophy behind those strategies, the understanding that war is a tool, not a purpose, the knowledge that sometimes the greatest strength is choosing not to use your weapons." Representative Horm looked skeptical. "You want to teach the Kryn that? They are conquerors. They have been waging extinction wars for centuries." "Then maybe it is time they learned something different," the keeper replied. "The Genesis protocol can teach strategic thinking to any species. What if we used it not to make others more like warriors, but to make warriors more like peacemakers?" Ambassador Theris leaned forward. "You are suggesting we share the Genesis protocol with the Kryn? Teach them to think like humans? Not just think like humans. Think like the best parts of humanity. The parts that can fight fiercely but also forgive. That can accept terrible sacrifices, but also mourn every loss. That can win wars, but choose peace." The council erupted in debate again. The idea was radical and dangerous, but Kale found himself agreeing with the Keeper. The tactical database contained more than just military knowledge. It contained the wisdom that led humanity to choose the Severance Protocol in the first place. After hours of argument, the Council called for a vote, not on implementation, but on whether humanity should be allowed to make this choice without interference. The vote was close, but passed. Humanity would have the right to decide their own fate. The Keeper addressed her fellow humans. We need to choose, not just our leaders or our council representative. All of us, every human, should have a voice in this decision. Over the next 3 days, the largest referendum in human history took place. 5 billion humans voted on 3 options: maintain military capability, implement the reversal protocol, or attempt to teach the Kryn the Genesis protocol with its philosophical components. Kale watched the results come in with growing tension. The galaxy held its breath. When the final count came in, the results were narrow but decisive. 53% of humans voted to attempt the Genesis protocol approach with the Kryn. 28% wanted to maintain military capability and fight if necessary. 19% supported the reversal protocol and returning to peace. Humanity had chosen to try the most difficult path. They would offer the Kryn something unprecedented: complete transparency about human strategic thinking, including the philosophical framework that allowed them to choose peace over conquest. The Keeper broadcast a message to the Kryn Emperor. We accept your interest in our strategic capabilities, but we will not submit to you. Instead, we offer you the Genesis Protocol voluntarily. We will teach you to think as humans do, not just how to fight, but why we fight, and when we choose not to fight. We will show you that strength and wisdom can coexist. She paused, letting that sink in. If you exterminate us, you lose the opportunity to learn this. You remain what you are, conquerors who only understand force. But if you accept our offer, you could become something greater. Warriors who choose their battles. Conquerors who understand when conquest is unnecessary. The message ended. The galaxy waited for the Kryn response. 3 days later, the Emperor sent a reply. Your offer is unexpected. We have never encountered an enemy that offers to strengthen us instead of protecting their advantages. This behavior does not match any strategic model we understand. The Emperor's expression was thoughtful. We will accept your offer, not because we trust you, but because we recognize that we do not understand you. Any enemy we cannot predict is dangerous. If your Genesis protocol teaches us to think as you do, then we will learn how to predict and counter you, or perhaps we will learn something else. Either way, knowledge of the enemy is valuable. What followed was unprecedented in galactic history. Human teachers traveled to Kryn worlds. Kryn warriors traveled to human archives. They studied together, argued, and slowly began to understand each other. The Kryn learned that humans could accept casualties because they valued each life deeply enough to honor every sacrifice. That strategic thinking did not mean coldness, but rather deep understanding of what mattered. That choosing peace after winning was not weakness, but the highest form of strength. And humans learned that the Kryn's aggression came from fear. Fear that the galaxy was too dangerous to trust others, fear that showing any vulnerability meant extinction. They had become conquerors because they believed it was the only way to survive. The transformation did not happen overnight. It took years. There were failures and setbacks. Some Kryn rejected the teachings and remained committed to conquest. Some humans argued that sharing the Genesis protocol was a mistake that would create more powerful enemies. But slowly, something changed. The Kryn began implementing new strategic doctrines that included negotiation and alliance building alongside military options. They started viewing other species as potential partners rather than just threats or prey. 50 years after the referendum, Kyle stood in the lunar vault with his grandchildren. He was ancient now, his scales pale and his movements slow, but his mind remained sharp. Beside him stood Sarah Chen, the keeper, equally elderly but still dignified. They watched as young humans and Kryn studied together in the archive, learning about the severance protocol and the choices their ancestors had made. "Did we do the right thing?" Sarah asked quietly. Kale considered the question. "I think so. Humanity remembered how to fight, but they also remembered why they chose to forget. That balance is what makes them special." "Marcus would have approved," Sarah said. "He sacrificed himself to protect others. He would have liked that we chose teaching over fighting when we had the chance." Kyle nodded. The young admiral's sacrifice had haunted him for decades, but he had kept his promise. He had told the galaxy about Marcus Chen, not just the warrior, but the person, the one who carried terrible knowledge but never lost his compassion. A young Kryn approached them, curiosity in his eyes. "Elders, I have a question. The humans could have kept the Genesis Protocol secret. It gave them a strategic advantage. Why did they share it?" Sarah smiled. "Because we learned that the greatest advantage is not having power others lack, but building a galaxy where everyone is strong enough to choose peace." "But what if someone uses that strength wrongly?" the young Kryn asked. "Then others must be strong enough to stop them," Kale replied. "That is why we maintain the archives, why we train the Keeper Corps, not to wage war, but to ensure that those who would wage war know they will face equals." The young Kryn considered this, then nodded slowly. "So strength maintains peace, but peace must be the goal." "Exactly," Sarah said. "You are learning." They watched the students work together, humans and Kryn, sharing knowledge and building understanding. The Old Testament AI observed quietly, its holographic form smiling with something like pride. "We were forgotten on purpose," Sarah said softly. "Our ancestors hid who they were because they loved us enough to want us to grow up in peace. But when we remembered, we had to choose who we wanted to be. Not who we were forced to be by circumstances, but who we chose to become." Kyle looked at Earth through the lunar observation window. The blue planet remained beautiful and peaceful, protected now not by walls and weapons, but by a galaxy that had learned the value of cooperation. "So what is humanity's secret?" he asked. "What makes them special?" Sarah thought for a moment, then smiled. "They can be monsters. They can accept terrible costs and make ruthless calculations. They can fight with efficiency that terrifies others. But they can also choose not to. They can win and then offer peace. They can remember how to kill and still choose to build. That duality, that is what makes them unique." "And dangerous," Kale added. "Yes," Sarah agreed. "But the best kind of dangerous. The kind that keeps the galaxy safe by making sure everyone knows that violence is an option, but not the only option. That strength exists, but is held in reserve." In orbit above them, the warships of the Keeper Corps maintained their silent vigil. The UNCS Remembrance had been rebuilt and recommissioned, not for war, but as a memorial, a reminder of what humans could do and what they chose not to do. Marcus Chen's final log entry was displayed in the Memorial Hall, where millions came to visit each year. "Remembering how to fight does not mean forgetting how to care." Those words had become humanity's motto, their gift to the galaxy. The lesson they had learned by forgetting and remembering and finally choosing who they wanted to be. They were humanity. They could fight. They could sacrifice. They could win. But more importantly, they could choose peace, even when they had every reason to choose war. That choice, that fundamental freedom to decide, was what had been forgotten on purpose. And in the end, it was the only thing that truly mattered.